You know, with this university thing, I was beginning to become ashamed about my indecisiveness. But now I realise that everything I've gone through since last September has been completely necessary. That sinking feeling every single time I chose the safe option of university, those bouts of anxiety and depression, it wasn't something to feel guilty about. It was a sign. It was a message. One of the most fascinating ideas I've come across this year is one of Carl Jung's and his conception of neurosis. And I think it all just ties in perfectly to what I've experienced so far. It seemed to Jung the meaning of neurotic sufferings might consist in their compelling a man to come to terms with the foundation of his being and with the world, and thereby to gain a better knowledge of his limits and possibilities. Jung thus puts emphasis on the prospective aspect, giving neurosis a positive meaning, and not regarding it only as a burdensome illness. According to him, it can even act as a stimulus in the struggle for the development of the personality, and be paradoxically a curative factor. I'd identify my neurotic suffering as like a innate dysfunction, but it was a guide, you know? All I really needed to do, and I'm so glad I did it, was to just keep hacking away at the question of, well, what am I doing with my life? Question: why are you going to university? Answer: well, I'll be seen as intellectual by others. I'll appease my parents. If I go to Edinburgh University, I can uncover and discover some of my Scottish heritage. It's all bullshit, man. All bullshit. All kind of fickle reasoning just to kind of cover up the fact that I didn't want to do it. When I was young, I saw the music video for I Will Wait by Mumford&Sons. It was them playing that song at the Red Rocks. And that Nevada venue would become iconic for me. You know, that image of people crazy happy, sweaty, dancing along to the music. I wanted to be on that stage. It became my dream, my North Star, if you will. I really do think something dormant within me was sort of sparked into life having watched that video. I made excuses for myself, you know. James, your guitar skills are really lacking. You have no musical background. And I got buried. There were plenty of reasons not to try and pursue it more. There are perhaps more reasons not to do it than to do it. But I focused on all the reasons why I couldn't do it, even though I really enjoyed doing it. I was scared more than anything else.
Pay attention to what's meaningful, because you can see what that is. You may find you're terrified of it, because everybody's got this little secret wish. I really love doing, I don't know what it is. It's different things for different people. But they're afraid to do it, to really do it, because as soon as you do what you really love, then you expose your nakedness, right? You say, this is what I'm really like. Instead, you just shove that under the bed and you do something you don't care about at all, and then if people judge you, it doesn't matter. But the problem with that is there's no life there. There's no force. There's no you. And without that, the suffering will do you in, and then you'll become a bad person. And that's not a good thing.
What I've realised this year is that this whole music thing, it's not, I like music, so I'm going to do this. It's I have to do music, because otherwise I cannot live healthily. This is something I must have to sustain me. It's a prerequisite. In essence, it's a vocation. One of the strangest things I almost can't come to terms with even now is that I think despite all this sort of internal struggle about my future, it's almost as if a certain part of me knew on a certain level all along. If you look at like my songs that I've written even just a year ago, some of the lyrics, I think it'd all be worth it if I follow my heart. This is what I was born to do. It's strange how in my head I was so clueless about what to do, but in my heart there was never really any doubt. I think now that my task was, and still is, just to awaken that potential.
And there you're talking on about the things that students ought to be reading, and suddenly you hit on something that the student really responds to. You can see the eyes open, the complexion changes, a life possibility has opened there. And all you can say to yourself is, I hope this child hangs on to that. We're having experiences all the time which may, on occasion, render some sense of this, a little intuition of where your joy is. Grab it. No one can tell you what it's going to be. I mean, you've got to learn to recognize your own depths. If you do follow your bliss, you put yourself on a kind of track that has been there all the while waiting for you, and the life that you ought to be living. I say follow your bliss and don't be afraid, and doors will open where you didn't know they were going to be.
But I won't be so naive to suggest that now that I've chosen a path that I believe to be genuine with myself as a being, basically, that then means that I'm going to proceed into a life of undisturbed bliss. That's just stupid. It's sensible to expect the opposite. When you're pursuing something that you, not your parents, not your mum, what do you actually want to do? There are going to be huge mistakes made and seemingly insurmountable obstacles along this path. In saying all of this, I'm perfectly aware that this is the opposite of the sensible, responsible route. This isn't safe. There's an intuition that almost reassures me sometimes that everything will be okay, just as long as you follow this. And that's a very, very hard thing to articulate. I'll say this in passing. My family are against this. My mum is completely, 100% against this. Asian culture is much more orientated towards the individual, sacrificing him or herself for the sake of the group. And I understand that. Her son is taking a huge risk. I called my grandma in Japan, and she's completely against it as well. Like, she thinks it's the worst idea. Oh my god. Calling me something in Japanese that would equate to being conceited. I understand that, you know. Perhaps artists also have a tendency to be more in the vain, conceited side as well. So that may be something I have to look out for. I have taken into account what other people have said. James, this is a stupid idea. What are you doing? I understand their point of view, but just because I respect my mum's opinion does not mean I'm gonna let her dictate my life. In a strange way, I'm almost thankful for how much opposition I've met in trying to do this. The fact that I've been able to listen to that and still smile and still say, yeah, I agree that it is irresponsible, it is not sensible, but still then go and say, but I have to do it. I have to do it. You know, there is a chance that the world chews me up and spits me back out, and that'll be James. But there's a knowing, almost. I'm not scared of that almost, because I know that it'll be fine. And think about the alternative, right? I go to university, not because I genuinely want to, you know, further my knowledge in that academic field, but because I want to appease my parents, because I want to be socially validated, because I think it's the right thing to do and the sensible thing to do. I'd be miserable there, man. And every single interaction with my parents, long term, will be tainted by the idea that I'm still really resentful over the fact that I went to university not wanting to, but did it because I was forced to by you. Ultimately, it was my decision, so it's my responsibility, and that's why I'm choosing this path now. But imagine, I come home from university, you know, oh, how's it going, you know? I'm not failing, but I'm working at like 60% because I don't want to do it. You know, I won't work as well as I can because I'm resentful towards my parents. What a situation that would be, you know? Terrible. It's not that this path isn't scary. It's not that this path isn't risky, but I have an inkling that the worst thing I can do is not follow this. When I made my first video about university, after making it I was quite uneasy, you know, there was still a bit of anxiety. But now I feel more at peace. I'm anxious because of the grandeur of my lofty ambitions, right? But before, it was a deadening anxiety about the lack of meaning in my life. So I know which one I prefer, you know? So that's it. Here's to the courageous struggle for a better life. For me and for you.